Hi, hello, welcome back to another function. This is Krish Bhavna. If you are for the first time, I'm a computer science student at University of Illinois at Chicago and I'm minoring in entrepreneurship. Today we'll be talking about the instructions and the control flow in the assembly language. So welcome back to the second episode in the assembly language series. So before we get started, there are three rules in this. The rule number one, please do watch the previous video which I've uploaded last week, then you'll understand what I'm talking today, or else this is kind of confusing to follow up if anybody is newly learning the language. If not, feel free to continue. Number two, I'm also a beginner. I'm learning this outside and I'm doing this as a class project for a project called Micro Project. So if you see any mistakes, please don't forget to comment down below so that even I can learn it, and if anybody got a wrong information, they can learn from it too. And number three, the most important one, this language which I'm talking right now is x86-64, and I'll be talking it from the C program language perspective so that it is easier when I'm talking about the conversions and all. So let's get started. Last week we were talking about registers and then the memory layout, and then we were talking a little bit about how the assembly, or where does the assembly language actually play its role, and how it is like the middleman, which I was explaining the concept. So now let's actually try to read the instructions and then understand it. So there are four important things in the instructions when we are trying to read it. The first one is the actual instruction, which tells us what is happening or what we are trying to do. So right now if you're looking at the instruction says MOV, which is move. I'll tell you what move is in the later part of the video, but for now let's try to just understand how instruction works. So now if you look at it, the first word is move, and then there is a suffix for it. There is no space or anything, it is completely in the word, but the last letter is suffix. The suffix is nothing but we try to determine the size. So now you're looking at a suffix called Q. Q means it can be a quad word, it can be a quadient, it can be anything. Quad is of 8 bytes. So there are multiple suffixes. The first one is B. B is byte. And then there's W. W is word, which is 2 bytes. And then we have L. L is of 4 bytes. And in L we can have multiple ones. We can have an int or we can have an unassigned value. And then we have long int. Long int is nothing but a quad word. So right now if you look at our previous example said Q. It can be a long int, it can be an unassigned long, it can be a char star. So there are chances that it can be multiple things. So you can't really determine what is the actual type of it just by looking at it, but you can come close by and you can understand what it is. And now let's get back to the instructions again. So the next part in the instructions is the source. So what is the source? So for example, let's get back to the move example which I've been talking. For example, you have a variable called x, and if you want to set that x variable to be 4, the source is the 4 and the destination, which is the next thing after the comma we have in the source, is called destination. So we're trying to copy the 4 into the destination. So right now we have some bracket value. Let's see how to convert that. That's not a big problem, but this is how an instruction looks. We have the main instructions, and then we have a suffix, and then we have a space. After that space we have a source, and then we have a comma, and then we have the destination. This is how the instructions in the assembly language looks most of the times. So this is a very, very important thing, because when you write exams or when you're actually trying to go for an interview, they might ask you to convert the assembly code into a familiar language like C. So before actually converting, today let's talk a little bit more about the special source cases which have those brackets. So right now we're looking at the special cases. There are 4 types of special cases. These can be combined together in most of the case scenarios. So you might see different types of ones. So these are like the base 4 special cases. The first one is when we have 2 values in a bracket, RB and RI. We do nothing, but we just add them and then we get the source value. If we have a value outside like a D, and then we have RB and RI, then we do nothing, but we just add all 3 of them. For example, if we have 3 values inside the brackets, then we multiply the last one to the second one and then we add it to the first one. Or if we have something like, for example, if we have like a D value outside and then we just have like 2 values but we just have a comma in front of it, we multiply the 2 values inside and then we add it to the D. So these are the special cases. Most of the times they will give you the value or the address associated with it to multiply it or to understand like how to compute it. So don't worry, this looks a bit complicated, but as much as you're practicing it, you'll get really comfortable with it. So this is how you read the special cases, and that's how you try to solve a problem using a special case. So now we talked about the instructions, we talked about the special cases. Now let's actually talk about the flow diagram for both the if statement and for the loops. So for example, if you are dealing with the if statement, the first thing we do is we check whether the if condition is right. If it is right, we execute the true block. If not, we directly jump to the statement which is after the if code. If it is true, we execute what is happening and then we execute the statement which is after the if code block. It is bit slightly different for the loop because we have to keep the counter to update it. So for example, if you look at the diagram for the loops right now, we start and then we initialize and then it goes to the condition. If it is false, then the loop automatically stops. If not, we go inside and then we mark it as true. We check whether if the condition is still going to pass because of the counter might get updated, and then unless the counter reaches it, it continuously goes in a process. For example, if we say like I is less than 5 and we start with 0, 0 is gonna work, 1 is gonna work, 2 is gonna work, 3 is gonna work, 4 is gonna work, but 5 is not gonna work because the counter has been updated to 5, which says 5 is not less than 5. So this is a flow diagram for both the if statements and for the condition. So the next part is jumping. So if you remember the images in the previous slide when we were talking about how the control flow works, we jump from one position to one position depending on the case. For example, if the if statement is failing, then we directly jump to the statement which is after the if, or the same thing happens with while the statement fails, even then we'll like jump to the next statement. If it is passing, we'll jump to a different statement. So this is how jumping plays a very crucial role. And there are some other important signs in jump too. For example, if you look at the different conditions we have, JMP is just an unconditional jump, and then JE is when we set equals to jump, and then JNE is when we say not equals or not 0. JS is when we jump to like a negative, and then JNS is when we have like a non-negative. So there are multiple possibilities for any single instruction that we try to look at. So mostly jumping instruction is commonized with JX, but if you want to get deep and if you want to learn more details, that is when we start looking at all the other instructions like JMP, JE, JNE and all. So the next thing that we're going to talk about in the instructions is the arithmetic operations. So in the arithmetic operations, we have different arithmetics like LEA, which is like, if you remember previously, the Q stands for nothing but a quad. So LEA is load effective address, and then D is the destination and S is the source. And then if you look at the next instructions, we have INC, we have DEC, we have NEG, and we have NOT. These all are the instructions from the arithmetic operations. So for example, if we have INC, it is just an increment by 1, DEC is a decrement, and the negotiation is as you know, it's negotiate, and we have add, subtract, multiply, exclusive OR, and left shift, right shift, and all these are the arithmetic operations. These are the very commonly used arithmetic operations in the assembly language. So if you ever get stuck, don't forget to always look up for these instructions, because there is always docs which you can find online which helps you with each and every instruction specifically. So now let's actually look at the fun part where we try to convert the C part into the assembly language. So now if you look at the C code, it says if x is equals to y, then x is equals to x plus y. So this is the C code. So now how do we actually do this in the assembly? If you look at the image right now, we have some important key instructions in here. The first one is CMPQ. So what does the CMP stands for? It stands for the comparison. And Q, you know what's Q? Q stands for a quad word. It can be anything in the quad word. And then we have RAX and RBX. So we're trying to compare RAX and RBX. And then we are telling JNE label. So basically, which label to use? JNE not equals to. So this is where it is kind of tricky, because we use the opposite term when we are doing it. JNE is actually equals to and JE is not equals to. And then the add queue is RBX and RAX. So the destination is RAX. So RAX is going to be the x. So RAX is equals to RAX plus RBX. It is nothing but x is equals to x plus y. So this is how we look at the actual code, and this is how we try to convert it from the C code to the assembly code. So the last and the final thing for today, let's talk about how loops work in the assembly language, and then let's end the lecture for today. So firstly, starting with the do while loops. So for example, let's say we have a certain code like do, and then we at least have like a statement for it to do, and then let's say we have a while condition, and then let's say the code goes on. So let's say, for example, do means at least do it one time. So we give a certain thing. For example, let's say we want to add two variables, maybe like x is equals to x plus y. Then maybe we'll say add b, and let's say we have x and y. That's like the first statement that we'll put it, and then we'll have the comparison statement. Let's say our comparison statement is until x is less than some 1000. Maybe we are telling it to go until it is 1000. So now the next statement or the next instruction we have is jx label. So the label is nothing but a piece of code in the assembly. So every time it jumps to the label until the condition we have is passing. Once the condition fails, we don't jump back to label, we just continue doing whatever we want. The same thing, and it is super similar with how it works in while loop too. But in while loop, we have two labels which we want to go for. The first label is called label 1, and let's say the second label is label 2. And let's say we have a condition like this, while certain, like maybe like while x is less than 10, and we say x plus plus. And now let's jump in here. So let's start with JMP label 1. So we're telling it to go to label 1 first, and then in label 1 we're telling it to compare. Say we have in the comparison statement, maybe we have something like x not equals to 10, just like the condition that I told you in the while loop. So it goes in there, and then it jumps to label 2 if the condition is passing. So this happens until the process keeps going on. Once the condition fails, the jump is not going to work anymore, and then we're going to come out of the loop, and then the program continues. So this is how we basically write the programs in the assembly language. So that's the video for today. I really hope you all liked it. So we talked about loops, we talked about if statements, we talked about the workflow conditions, we talked about how the instructions work, we talked about the special cases. So we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the code conversion a little bit, not a lot, but that was a good beginning. So we talked about different things today. So if you don't understand anything, please do comment down below, and please do watch the video once again, and please do share it with all your friends who are like really interested in learning something new. So that's the video for today, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at Krish_Bhavna, and that's the video for today. See you all this Wednesday. Until then, signing off, this is Krish Bhavna.